When you hear the word Celt, what comes to mind? Maybe it's a fierce woad-painted warrior with a blue face, or a mysterious druid standing in a circle of stones. For many, the Celts are a people shrouded in mist and myth. Their history, a romanticized tale of ancient heroes and a lost way of life. But what if I told you that nearly everything we think we know about the Celts is wrong, and that their world wasn't just ancient, but also deeply, inherently spooky? That their forests held more than just trees, and their nights were alive with far more than just moonlight. Today, we're not just uncovering the history of the Celts, we're delving into the paranormal heart of their society on this episode of The Weekly Strange. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Weekly Strange. I'm your host, John F. Mers, author, actor, adventurer. The first secret regarding the Celts is that they weren't a single people, a nation, or even an empire. In fact, they never even called themselves Celts. That name was given to them by the ancient Greeks, who encountered them in the 6th century BC and called them Keltoi, or barbarians. The Romans would later refer to them as Galli, or Gauls. The Celts were, in fact, a collection of hundreds of tribal societies spread across a vast stretch of Europe, from Spain to Turkey, and from the British Isles to the Black Sea. They were geographically the largest group of people in ancient Europe. But they were never politically unified. What bound them together wasn't a single king or a central government. It was a shared culture, language, and a distinct artistic style. But beneath that, there was also a shared spiritual landscape, one deeply connected to the land itself and the unseen forces that dwelled within it. For centuries, historians believed that Celtic culture spread through a massive migration from a single homeland. But archaeological evidence tells a different story. It was more like a cultural phenomenon, a set of ideas and customs that spread and were adopted by different tribes. Think of it like a global trend today. A style of music or clothing doesn't require a single group to physically move to every country. It spreads through trade, cultural exchange, and influence. The Celts were a cultural movement, a powerful and resilient one. And as their culture spread, so too did their beliefs in otherworldly beings, fae folk, and the spirits that inhabited every grove and stream. To them, the land wasn't just dirt and trees, it was alive, and often it watched them. The Romans, our main source of written information on the Celts, painted a picture of them as fierce, undisciplined barbarians. They wrote of a people who fought naked, with wild war cries, and were prone to drunken feasting. And while the Celts were undoubtedly formidable warriors, they famously sacked Rome in 387 BC, the Roman accounts are also highly biased. They had to be. It was the Roman way to justify their conquests by framing their enemies as uncivilized and in desperate need of Roman rule. The reality was far from barbaric, but it certainly wasn't devoid of what we might call the dark arts. Archaeology reveals a sophisticated and technologically advanced society. The Celts were the first in Europe to master iron on a large scale. This mastery of metalworking wasn't just for weapons. Their art is a testament to their genius. Look at the Celtic torque, a neck ring worn by warriors and nobility. The intricate spirals, knots, and animal motifs are astonishingly complex, showcasing a level of craftsmanship that rivals any other ancient civilization. And as we're learning from recent discoveries, there's always more to uncover about the Celts. Just recently, a massive trove of artifacts was unearthed in the Czech Republic, along the route of a new highway. The site, dating to the La Tène period around the 2nd century BC, was a major Celtic trade and production center. It contained a huge haul of gold and silver coins, luxury pottery items, metalwork, and amber. This discovery, described as unprecedented by archaeologists, is concrete proof of the wealth, far-reaching trade networks, and incredible craftsmanship that were central to Celtic society. But amidst this wealth, we also find hints of their more unsettling practices. The Romans claimed that the Celts engaged in human sacrifice, offering victims to their gods in sacred groves or bogs. While some archaeologists debate the extent of these practices, discoveries like the incredibly well-preserved bog bodies found in Ireland and Denmark, often showing signs of violent death and ritualistic deposition, certainly lend a chilling authenticity to those ancient rumors. Feasting, which the Romans called excessive drinking, was actually a crucial social tool. It was how Celtic elites built alliances and solidified power, often after dark when the veil between worlds was thin. Of all the things we think we know about the Celts, the Druids are perhaps the most mysterious. The word Druid itself is thought to mean oak knower or wisdom of the oak. The Romans described them as priests, judges, doctors, and philosophers, but they were also much more. They were seers, magicians, and interlocutors with the spirit world. They were the keepers of oral traditions, which is why the Celts left no written records of their own religion or lore. The Druids believed that knowledge was too sacred to be written down and could only be passed from teacher to student, often in secret over decades of training in isolated groves. Now, Celtic religion was polytheistic, with a vast pantheon of gods and goddesses, but it was also intensely animistic. They believed that the natural world was alive with spirits, and not all of them benevolent. Trees, rivers, mountains, and especially wells and springs all had a divine essence and could also be gateways to the other world. Sacred places were not built temples, but natural groves and springs called nematons. These were not just places of worship, they were places where the veil between worlds was thinnest, where Druids could commune with spirits, divine the future, and perhaps even invoke ancient, powerful forces. This deep reverence for nature and its hidden power is a central theme in their culture. They saw divinity in everything around them, from the sun and moon to a rushing river, and they knew the power could be both beautiful and terrifying. Because the Celts left no written records, our understanding of their myths comes from a much later source: Christian monks who, centuries later, wrote down the old stories. And this means the myths we have are filtered through a Christian lens, but they are no less fascinating and often still quite unsettling. Celtic mythology is rich with tales of gods, supernatural beings, and heroes, but also of darker creatures. Now, forgive me for my pronunciation on these, but here we go. There's the Tuatha De Danann, a godlike race who retreated into the hollow hills to become the Fey folk, the sometimes mischievous, sometimes malevolent spirits of the land. Then there's the horned god Cernunnos, a deity of nature and fertility, often depicted with animals, but whose wild, untamed nature could also inspire fear. And, of course, there's Brigid, the most easily pronounceable of the bunch, the goddess of fire, poetry, and healing, who was so powerful she was later absorbed into the Christian tradition as Saint Brigid, but whose original power could be fierce and consuming. The Celts had a unique view of the afterlife. They believed it was not a place of final judgment, but rather a continuation of life on the other side, often depicted as a land of the young or the Summerland. As one historian famously put it, the Celts believed in a kind of BYOB afterlife. They were buried with their prized possessions, weapons, jewelry, and most importantly, drinking horns and cauldrons full of mead, because nothing says dying like throwing a massive party when you get to the other side. It was their belief that a good leader had to be generous in this life, throwing great feasts, and that they would continue to do so in the next life. However, not all souls found their way peacefully to the other world. There were beliefs in unquiet spirits, especially those who died violently or unjustly, who could linger in this world, haunting the places of their demise or seeking retribution. Burial mounds, like the ones that we see in reports and articles, were not just graves, they were often seen as doorways to the other world, places where the living could still interact, for better or for worse, with the dead. So how did a culture that spanned a continent survive the rise of the Roman Empire and its attempts to stamp out the barbaric and superstitious ways? The answer lies in the peripheries. While the Romans conquered Gaul, modern-day France, they never fully subjugated the tribes in the far reaches of Europe, especially in the British Isles. Here, Celtic languages and traditions were able to endure, thriving in isolation, often in wild, untamed landscapes that fostered their ancient beliefs in spirits and magic. Today, we have 6 living Celtic languages: Irish, Scottish Gaelic, Welsh, Manx, Cornish, and Breton. These languages are a direct, unbroken link to a 2,000-year-old past, still carrying the echoes of ancient incantations and folk tales. While many of these languages are endangered, there's a powerful modern movement to revive them. In Wales, Welsh is a thriving language taught in schools and spoken by hundreds of thousands of people. In Ireland, there's also a strong push to keep Irish alive, and with it, the rich oral traditions of their ancestors. Tales of banshees, leprechauns, and spectral hounds passed down through generations. The modern Celtic nations, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, the Isle of Man, Cornwall, and Brittany in France, are not just places with a shared heritage. They are the living, breathing legacy of a civilization that never truly died, a culture still attuned to the unseen forces of its ancient lands. The real secret of the Celts is that they were never a single monolithic empire. Their influence isn't just a historical footnote. It's in the music we hear, the stories that we tell, and the languages that are still being spoken today. The Celts were a civilization that never built monuments on the scale of the Romans, because their greatest monument was a rich, intricate culture that against all odds has endured. And perhaps, if you listen closely enough in those ancient places, those ancient groves, you can still hear the whispers of their gods, the rustle of the fae, and the spectral echoes of a world long past, still haunting the edges of our own. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of The Weekly Strange. I am really hopeful that the audio on this is good, considering that the neighbor 2 houses down seems to be doing his best to blast a hole into the ozone layer, and I'm not sure what the old microphone here caught, so apologies if you hear a power saw in the background. If you like the show, please be sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, comment below the video, let me know that you liked it, and be sure to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my new uploads. If you really like the content that I'm producing, please consider joining the channel as a supporting member. And let's see, you get access to some pretty cool perks. New videos come out early for you guys. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you again to all the new subscribers to the channel. I really appreciate you being here. I will see you again early next week with new episodes of both Extra Strange and The Weekly Strange. But for now, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Have a great night. See, there it is again.